welcome to HoB 2020. As ever, I am joined by Will.
Thank you, Jack.
Spoke too slow not to catch you with a coffee break there. We've been talking about what we've been doing while that thing is going on that we're not allowed to mention, although Will mentioned loads of times last week. And this week we're going to branch out a little bit and talk about something that's quite an interesting topic, Will, because some of it's obvious, some of it isn't, and we want to break a few of the what's the word?
Well, it's a bit of
the
stigma, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
the stigma. And so what we're going to talk about this week is who we help. Now, starting off very easily, there is a couple of obvious people we help, and it's on our posters, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It says we help people who are homeless and vulnerable. So just describe the homeless category very quickly.
Yeah.
Just to reassure you, we do know what Jerry's doing in the background. She's not just trying to get on the video.
So homeless can be all sorts of things. It can be the man or the woman in the street who's rough sleeping. It could be the sofa surfer who's on different sofas, not in a fixed abode. Somebody who's experiencing domestic violence, who is in crisis. It could be all sorts of reasons. So homelessness covers quite a large category. And of course, if you are homeless, as we've often talked about, there are complications, and this weather particularly makes it more difficult. So it's about looking out and supporting people who are finding themselves homeless or vulnerable.
And vulnerable's the wider category that we'll talk about now. So we've got the various obvious difficulties of being homeless. Vulnerable goes beyond being homeless, Will, although it encompasses people who are homeless as well. Maybe we can talk about the people that we're not so obvious that need a bit of help.
So there are a number of people who are in houses or in properties who lose their jobs or struggle with benefits, or they may be in supported living, and at one time or another things will get more complicated in their lives. There might be an addiction, there might be a family dispute, there might be a debt issue. These are all things that make the vulnerability perhaps not so obvious, and so we have to be very careful not to judge anybody. So at House of Bread we say we welcome all. What we try and do as part of that relationship is to see if we can unpack some of the reasons that they've got to a food bank, because this is not normal world, and to help people through that if they'll let us.
And that's a really broad category, and sometimes that can not seem obvious to others or to the individual themselves that they need help. A lot of the time we get through to some people who need our help just by talking about what we do, and a lot of people say, oh, you do that, do you? I need that help. Or, you know, my husband's just gone through this, my wife's just gone through this, my partner's doing this, I've just had 3 children all at once. That hasn't happened yet, but, well, not to me personally. But yeah, it's not obvious, and there's even people less obvious, Will, who might even be in work and need our help.
I think the thing that we noticed was that actually making contact with us. So it might be that people are requesting a food bag, or they might be inquiring. I think we've struck a real chord with people who recognises that we're not going to judge them.
But a lot of the time, we use food as a stepping post into people's lives. When the cafe's open, that's what's making this time difficult. The cafe is a really good place to say, look, come in, we've got lots of food, let's have a chat about it, and let's see if we can help, because sometimes food might not be the issue. Sometimes somebody might be able to afford a weekly shop, but just coming to the side door, especially during a global thing, coming to the side door gives us the chance to do a wellbeing check on that person visually. And that can be really important, because statutory authorities, including the police, will often call us, Will, and say, you've seen this person, are they okay? Because we haven't been able to see them, or they won't come to the door because we're wearing a uniform.
Yeah, it's a very good point. We sort of imagine ourselves as the grouting between the friend, which is what we call a service user, and the statutory provider. And the statutory provider may not be able to be as generous with their time, and that's not a criticism, that's a fact. There are less of them, there's less resource. So if we can be the conduit between the agency for identification and wellbeing, it might be actually that we are the way that person can get advice, so they might feel more comfortable coming to us. So we do a lot of work with the Citizens Advice Bureau that happens to be very close to the police station, and some of our friends don't want to go down Gatehouse Street or whatever it's called, so they'll come and talk to us. So I think what we need to think about across society, particularly with everything going on today, is that more and more people are vulnerable, and some of those reasons are not your fault. You are a victim of what's happening in the world.
Exactly. And, just as we come to the end, I was thinking when we were deciding to talk about this, I was going to say to you at home, if you've ever... That's our doorbell. It's Jerry having busy. To do more. If you've ever had to ask a family member or a friend for a bit of a hand here and there, or, simply can you go and do the shopping, or the tiniest thing, some people don't have that, and that's where we come in. It might be obvious that we help the homeless people, the people who have nothing, all those obvious ones, but sometimes, like I said, if you've ever asked anybody else for help, sometimes we are only that for that person.
And what we would say is ask for that help. Phone us, make contact through social media, whatever it is the way. Don't sit at home suffering.
And don't think that you have to justify your phone call to us. We're more than happy to chat and help out.
Yeah, thank you to Jerry, who's dealing with several cases
now,
at the moment.
hopefully this is edited well enough. Jerry has been in and amongst the cameras this whole time, and you won't have seen her. But thank you very much, Will, for joining me.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much, Jerry, for doing what we should be doing instead of doing this. And thank you very much for watching as ever. Go and this is the first video you've seen, there's loads on YouTube, you can go back, they're all old and out of date, but there might be something interesting there, especially with our campaigns. They're always relevant, our winter and summer one especially. But until next week when we will be back, we will see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.